I've been asking mostly just for a machete for the last, decade.
As one would.
Yes. I want to be able to use it. I don't want it to be anything that's super precious.
Yeah, like a safe queen. You don't want that.
I don't want it to be really big.
In Spanish, there's a saying, en casa de herrero, cuchillo de palo, which means in the home of the knife maker or the ironsmith, they use knives of wood.
Welcome to the KnifeWife podcast. I'm Suz, married to Bob Terzuola. This podcast is about couples who live, love, and work together. It has little to do with knives. Hey everybody, it's Suz and
Bob.
And welcome to the KnifeWife podcast.
Benvenuto a tutti nostri amici.
Oh, well.
Practicing for Italy.
Okay, I have not. And well, I found this funny translator thing when I was looking for our wedding papers. And it's like a flip book of Italian phrases that was written in probably, 1990 or something. And I have that out on the counter thinking, I'll read those. No, I'm not. Anyway, so thanks everybody who's listening and writing to us. And, as I say, nobody's more surprised than me that I have a podcast. And I'm trying to give everybody a break from the toxic media, which is really heating up in election season. And we do not talk about this much to Bob's chagrin. He can have his own podcast if he wants to talk about that. But anyway, this is his podcast too. Here at The KnifeWife, we answer questions that nobody asks. And we don't use Wikipedia because I am married to Wikipedia.
But we do get questions every once in a while floating in.
Yes. And what I hope is people find their own stories by listening to other people's stories. I think the most important things that happen in our life are stories of ourselves and of others, or that people share with us, and that's how history was passed on and language was passed on. So I'm really excited to always hear people's stories. They fascinate me. My father, when I was young, used to say, Susie gets along with people of, all walks of life and all ages and whatever. I don't know if he was trying to sell me for marriage or what, but he used to say that, and I do. I love hearing people's stories, good or bad, happy, sad, doesn't make any difference. So we have a question from one of our, I think this was through Instagram, DDK. I don't know who these people are, but DDK wants to know, what do you do together when you're not working?
Well, we've done a couple of things. One thing that we really enjoy doing is ceramics. We've taken ceramics classes. I like to throw on the wheel, make round pots and cups and stuff. And Susie does...
I do all the glazes and decorating and trimming of the pots and our plates. We made a lot of pie plates, dog dishes, everything. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing is when we went to this class or this studio, probably we had more... Don't you think we had more skills than the person who might have been teaching us?
Possibly.
We used to have this problem. We'd make these beautiful things, like we made a ginger jar with a lid that was really intricate. And somehow taking them in and out of the kiln, they got warped or bent or like squeezed out of shape all the time. As soon as we would make some really stunning piece, that somehow... Oh, and I made the glazes, which just flipped her out. And we worked in porcelain, which nobody had ever done there before. But that was really fun. And there was a dog there in the studio.
Yeah, we enjoyed him.
Ringo.
Bingo's
No,
right.
Ringo. Ringo. And he used to put his head on Bob's lap while he was throwing a pot. It was great. It was fun to watch. And we brought our grandson there, Ethan. I still have the bowl you made me with the elephant on the side, which we still have it.
And we enjoy movies together. We love going to movies and watching movies on television or the big screen.
And then I make you watch every stand-up person that they have. I've discovered that Netflix has an easy way out, which is to
funny or not.
I tend to laugh at really stupid stuff.
But we do enjoy going to the some comedy shows that have started up here in San Marcos and San Diego. They're kind of Well, it's not improv.
No,
but
it's called Don't Tell Comedy. They have them all over the country. Nate Bargatze, Hey Bear, told me about that, and he, a couple of the comedians that were on were part of this, and so there's always a headliner, and then there's about 5 warm-ups or 4 warm-ups, and they don't let you know where you're going till the night before. It's rarely at a club. It's always at a restaurant or some retail venue. One time it was someone's backyard.
Somebody's backyard, yeah.
Which was, I don't know, that was really fun because we were all sharing our snacks and treats because there was no bar or anything. Like in a restaurant, there was all kinds of food, but when they did, we were outside in the backyard. But that was really fun. And this weekend, we went to another one in Escondido, and one of the comedians, he's called Ahmed with the Bread. That's his Instagram handle. I told him I'd give him a shout out on the podcast. Anyway, he was so funny, and he asked the audience, he did a lot of crowd work, and he asked the audience, what was the worst dating advice you ever got? Do you remember what I said, Bob? I yelled out.
I do, but I'm embarrassed. I'll keep my mouth. I'll say no more.
Oh, I yelled out, keep your knees together. I got that information from my mother, and immediately Ahmed said, "What do you know my mother? Were we raised by the same person?" Anyway, so it was a great time. So that's what we really enjoy together.
Yeah, another thing we enjoy together is traveling.
Oh, yeah.
Not only just for knife shows, but we're getting ready to go to Italy for kind of actually a vacation. And we actually had a vacation in Hawaii once.
Yeah, that was our first ever vacation. But we've had other vacations. We went to Italy before with no show, no nothing.
Yeah.
So Italy is Susan's happy place, and Bob's 100% Italian. So, and we have good friends there who we're going to see again, and we talked about it. We talked about it in our newsletter. I laid out our itinerary. I'm my next life, I'm going to be a travel agent, I think, because I'm always finding things. I got Venice. We're going to go to Venice, the two of us, for several days, and love Venice. I'm going to the BRNLY, who I'll talk about that with our guest in a minute. Anyway, so I'm getting the hand signal from Bob. Let's get to it. Anyway, this might take the whole hour, Matteo. If it does, let's go over, because I'm telling you, our guest today is somebody I'm really excited about. Her name is Maddie Burnley. Maddie, say hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi, thanks for coming.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited you're here too.
Hi, Maddie.
Hi. I was just listening. It's like listening to the podcast. Like I've been listening to you guys when I'm working, when I'm doing shipping, and now I just like to sit and listen to you guys talk for a while. But
okay, well, that's good. I hope other people do too. Anyway, I'm surprised people listen. I said to Bob, people are actually commenting and listening to the podcast, so we better watch what we say. Before the beginning, when you're sitting in a room, you don't know what you're saying. Anyway, Maddie, I met her many, many years ago in New York. She came to the New York knife show for the first time, and I had heard about her. I had heard about he wasn't her husband then, but Lucas had met her, and he said she was really special, and I had talked to Pat Pruitt, and he said she was really special. And I thought, that's high praise for those guys. And so she came to the show, and but before you became a knife wife or got in this land that we live in, I just heard the word shipping, which, why is fulfillment? I can't find anyone to do fulfillment. Anyway, I want to talk about your history before you met Luke, and you worked at a job that I think most artists would also love to work there, which was the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem, Massachusetts, as an assistant curator of exhibitions. And at this point, I'm going to tell us about your job. I want to hear about, there are many artists you work with that are just, I can't hear enough.
Oh, my goodness.
Start with Iris.
So I started working at the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem, Massachusetts, which, most people know for the witch museums. A lot of people have gone there for the witch museums, and the Peabody Essex Museum is really, it's just this, it started as a small museum, and now it's really this world-class institution. Sure and is. I was lucky enough to kind of, find my way in. I started there as not really an intern, but and an assistant for a special exhibition, and I worked on that for just a couple years with the curator of Native American art. And then after that, I was hired as a curator, assistant curator of exhibitions and research. So that meant I get to work with all the different curators and kind of branch out and do a bunch of different exhibitions. So, one might have been like Fabergé, and another would have been working on an exhibition of hats or Japanese fashion. So it kind of ran the gamut, and it was such a cool way into the art world.
One of the exhibitions I know you worked on was Iris Apfel's Rare Bird of Fashion, and Iris and I have a lot in common. I hope I just can live as long as she did. And, I've always been my own person, and so has she. And I came across her years ago. She did a collection for some jewelry company, and I thought, who is this? And then I learned about her. And then I think they did a movie about her called Iris, which I've watched multiple times. But then I said, Maddie, did you work on this exhibition? Tell me about it.
So I started at the museum right on the tail end of that exhibition. So I didn't get to work with her personally on that, but I did. Let's see, they had a fashion show for members and interested public, and it was kind of like an Iris Apfel inspired fashion show, and there were pieces from her collection that you could purchase at the shop. And so the thinking was like, well, we'll get various museum employees and interns, and we'll do a fashion show. And so we got all kind of decked out in Iris Apfel accessories and fashion items from the store, and
glasses.
And Iris called in and was like, her face was huge behind the runway, and I was like, she's gonna see me. This is incredible. Like in this small, just in this small moment, she'll know who I am, basically, But she fell asleep. She fell asleep about halfway through the show, or kept dozing off, and I can't blame her.
No,
but,
and also, how old was she then?
I mean,
90?
She was in her 90s.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my one overlap, except for the time that I think I saw her at the museum, and I didn't have any meetings or anything scheduled with her, but she had really formed a nice, a close bond with a lot of the curators and people that worked there over the course of the exhibition being at the Peabody Essex Museum.
Yeah, she sort of collects people as she goes along. Years ago, I was in New York, and someone for Advanced Style took my picture because I said, not iris glasses, but I had round glasses on, and I had a beautiful designer coat on, and I was all dressed up. It was New York. And he said, can I take your picture for Advanced Style? He said, you remind me of Iris Apfel. I said, I just found out who she was. I said, I must, this woman resonates with me. But anyway, so what people, I think, don't realize is how long it takes to put on an exhibition. It isn't like, on Tuesday they said, okay, we're going to do this, and then a month later it's up. It is a long process, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes. And if you're the institution that's putting the exhibition on, like the one that I was working on when I first started at the museum, it was probably 50 living artists, and then also you're lending from institutions.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about a 3-year exhibition.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say something like that, from start to end. And I got to meet really wonderful people and artists through the museum that some of them I'm still friendly with today, which is amazing.
Cool. Well, you worked with Theo Jansen, whose Strand Beasts I saw in Miami years ago. And what was he like?
Wait, you were there?
Was that? Yeah, we were
Art
there, but
Basel?
we didn't know each other.
I was
think
working then.
I
was
know.
working the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't know. But, I do things like that in the BRNLY. This is my 5th BRNLY I'm going to in Venice. And
so cool.
huge Native American exhibit this year. Lots of New Mexico people, artists are represented. It's really cool. So, but
I'd love to make it to that one day.
Yeah, I think you would.
One day.
Yeah, you will. You will. So Theo Jensen, what was he like? Explain what stand-to-beasts are, because they're not something you hang on the wall.
So his strand beasts, they're these incredible structures made out of PVC tubing, and basically he had this idea to create these creatures that would help solve the problem of erosion on the beach where he lives in his country. And
is he from
just
Holland?
over time, these creatures that are self-propelled, either they're by wind or these plastic bottles, they evolved, and some of them became extinct, and so they're just it's incredible when you look at it.
And how big are they?
I'm so bad with
the ones
judging
I saw
size, but
in Miami were it was 20 feet long and 12 feet high, I'd say.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, and it's walking down the beach by itself, and you're like, wow, what is that? I saw it out the window. I didn't know he was going to be doing this, and I saw it out the window of one of the places, the venues, and I was like, what is that? So then I went outside and checked it out.
Yeah, it's just so interesting that it became this all-consuming passion project for him, and I can totally understand that. When you're making something and then you make improvements and then you make more improvements, and some ideas fall by the wayside, and things keep changing and expanding and growing and evolving, and it's just so cool to be around people with brains like that.
Yeah, I love it. I just totally love it. And you also talked about a soundscape. You had to create a soundscape for an exhibit. Tell us about that exhibit.
Oh, yeah. That one was so cool. You have to do some interesting problem solving for some exhibitions, and this one was no different. We had to bring, there's an artist named Celeste Boursier-Mougenot, and he does a series of projects called From Here to Ear, where basically he turns a space into an aviary. So in this case, it was one of our galleries we turned into an aviary, and we had tons of finches that would fly around in this space, and they would land on Gibson Les Paul guitars and create this incredible music, basically. And you just walk around this gallery, and the birds would fly around you and land on the guitars, and just so outside anything the museum had done before. And because you're thinking like, well, I've got to bring live animals in to a museum. Okay, where do I get that many finches? What do you do with them after the exhibition? How do we take care of them during the exhibition? I guess we have to hire new employees who are specifically, trained to work around these birds and make sure that they're not, laying eggs, and we don't want a ton of new babies.
And finches, I used to raise them. They can have babies pretty often. Yeah.
So it was one of those exhibitions, and it came together beautifully. You would want to be in that space.
Wow.
Just for such a long time. I could have spent hours in there.
Yeah.
But it was really fun to be able to think through those problems and put something completely new together.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I have that in common. Give me something no one's done before, I can do it, or I'll try at least.
I remember I met with that artist. It was on a weekend, and so a bunch of employees, the curator in charge of the show wasn't around, and a few of the other higher ups, and they said, well, can you meet up with him this weekend? I said, okay.
What?
This will be great. And I remember we met at a coffee shop before we walked over to the museum, and he said, well, first I have to get ready. So let me just drink 4 double espressos really quick. And I thought, this is going to be such a great day. I don't even know what's going to happen.
Right. Are you going
How
to
he's
fly
gonna
with
be
the
alive
birds?
after 4 double espressos, but let's do it.
Okay.
But he was an interesting character. I liked him a lot.
Yeah, in the movies they would call in a finch wrangler.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'd have someone, I don't know, these people who wrangled these different animals were fascinating. We've had chicken wranglers. We had a scorpion wrangler. We had lots of things.
That was the first thing we were all thinking. We were like, how do you do this? How do you get the finches in?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I think we have to call someone who works in the movies. I think we need a wrangler here. Someone who will bring the birds and then bring them home with them.
Exactly. Yeah. So did you find someone, or how did you get the birds in there?
We did. I think we eventually got a wrangler.
Okay.
And they helped us throughout the process, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. And anybody who has not seen the strand beasts, Google it. It's STRANDBEEST.
Mm-hmm.
Google that, or Theo Jansen. Is Theo from Holland?
Yes.
How did you exhibit his work?
So it's interesting. I was there for the preliminary discussions with this exhibition, and I left the museum to move to New Mexico right before it was installed. But I came back and I visited and got to see it when it was up. But there were kind of some different ways that the museum wanted to have visitors encounter the strand beasts, and there were a couple stations where you could kind of closely explore some of the mechanisms,
Mm-hmm.
some of the ways that the strand beast moved. I think there were a couple extinct beasts in the gallery.
I love that word.
And
yeah.
it was a show that he also was doing with Lena Herzog, wife of Werner Herzog.
Mm-hmm.
And she's
Tell everyone who that is, because not
she's a really
knows.
phenomenal. She's a phenomenal photographer, and Werner Herzog is a phenomenal, very well-known filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
But so her photographs and documentary photographs that she had taken over the years of Theo were all around the gallery space.
Okay.
Really, there was some smaller ones, but when they were really needed, like very large scale photos, as I recall. So you could kind of see, it was almost like you were being immersed in the strand beast natural habitat of the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And Holland has a lot of beaches, so that's a good place to.
Yeah.
I see.
And I think there
that.
were a few live displays maybe throughout the day, as another way to kind of help people understand how they move and why it's kind of so exciting to see these creatures.
Yeah. For me, what was most exciting when I was in Miami is I had never seen anything like that in my life.
They were made of bamboo, weren't they? Or
pipe, I think. Pipe, PVC pipe.
PVC pipe.
PVC.
I think it had to be heavier to not blow away. If they were bamboo, it probably would have not been heavy enough. But anyway, that's up to Theo to tell us why he chose that. Anyway, and then you talked about a Japanese fashion show from the 80s where you wore a little hat, but that I hope we'll get a picture of. But tell us the story of that exhibition, please.
Well, that was a wonderful exhibition. So it was avant-garde Japanese fashion. So kind of from the 80s, onward, and what designers in the 80s were kind of playing with these ideas of which is the space between your body and the clothing. So much drapier than a lot of like the very tight-fitting Italian fashion of that same time, and dark colors, not super, the 80s kind of sexualized high heels and super tight clothing, and it was a little bit more, flat shoes, really interesting textiles and innovations in textiles, and really interesting shapes on the body.
Yes.
Like Comme des Garçons, really played around with those ideas, and Issey Miyake, and it was really fun. And that's one that I was excited. I think Luke flew out to see the opening of that show. And we had a really fun time, I guess, going through the exhibition. And there was a little area where you could try on some items for yourself. And he looked great in it. He looks great in the jacket.
Yes. Well, now that you mentioned that guy, Luke, you were working on the in the Native American and Oceanic art.
Yes.
And that's what brought you together. Tell us that story when you came to our wonderful state of New Mexico.
I'll try to keep it somewhat coherent for people, because I have a tendency to start talking really fast when I get to tell my favorite story.
Okay.
But I was working on an exhibition of contemporary Native American fashion. And so we were still bringing all the pieces together, and it was time to go to Indian Art Market, which just happened.
It did. I missed it. I want to go back. I miss it so much.
I know. It's such a wonderful event that happens in Santa Fe every year. And so this was the first time I was getting to go. The curator, Karen Kramer, she always would go. And then actually a group of, trustees from the museum and the director and his wife, they kind of would organize a group. And I was so excited to be getting to go to this.
Sure.
So we were in Santa Fe to meet the artists that we were working with, that were going to be in this exhibition, kind of see what they were making, maybe do some like interviews, and have some other material for the exhibition and for the publication. And I had been emailing with Pat for several years.
Tell us who Pat is.
Pat Pruitt, a phenomenal artist and jeweler and friend of my husband, which I didn't know at the time, but I had been emailing with Pat, and I was excited to meet him in person for the first time. And I think I remember he was like, oh, you're Maddie. I kind of thought I might have been emailing with a museum basement troll for years. I guess I was like younger than he was expecting or something. And he said, you know what? I'd really like you to meet my friend Lucas. And I was like, well, okay. I mean, I am going back to Salem soon, but all right. I really wanted to be polite. I wanted to be a good ambassador of the museum.
But little did you know.
I know.
Little did you know.
So the other thing that was going on in my life at the time was that I was not having much success with dating in my area. I had joined, Match.com, and I was trying to go on a couple dates, but kind of kept picking the wrong guys.
Well, it's hard because I was on Match.com at one point before I met Bob, and the 6'1" guy in the picture showed up to be 5'8" with cowboy boots and a hat, and I was like, okay, well, if you're going to lie about that, what else are you going to lie to me about?
It's really weird, but I had a friend who was like, if anything, it's just good practice at dating.
That's what my friend told me.
I was like, okay, so I got some practice, and I was, when Pat asked, I thought, well, sure, I can do this. I can practice dating. But I was talking with the curator when I landed in Santa Fe. I was looking at these billboards, and I think there was one for a knife store in Santa Fe, and then we were staying at one of the hotels, and they had like a little display case of knives, and something just kind of clicked in me, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I think I'm going to start collecting knives. I said, I was telling Karen, I said, I've always loved knives. Like, how come I don't have knives in my life more? You know? And I
look
said,
out.
I was like, this is going to be the litmus test for any man that I'm dating. I think if they're just freaked out by my knife collection, then they're probably not the right person for me.
There you go.
And I don't know why I was just saying this. Everybody kind of thought this is real weird that she's talking about these knives, but okay, just let her do it.
Yeah.
And so when Pat said, you just got to meet my friend Lucas, I said, okay.
And he told you
and
he's a
then,
knife maker.
lo and behold, it's, he's a knife maker. And I was so excited to just sit down and talk with him about knives because I thought about collecting knives, but I was like, there are people who make them, of course.
You thought this was a good way of adding to your collection?
I guess so, but I just thought this is such a weird coincidence, And yeah, and I guess for both of us, when I met Luke on Sunday of Indian Market, I had to leave the fashion show that I was watching, and I went to go talk with him. And I said, just if you can stick around for just a little bit, like we can get together and maybe walk around and get a drink or something and chat. And so he did, and then over beers, I was asking him all about knives. And I said, wait, hold on one second. Do you know Ken Onion? And he was like, do you know Ken Onion? What are you asking me? Because I didn't get like all of the fun knife catalogs and stuff that I get now in the mail.
Yeah.
But I used to get my Williams-Sonoma catalogs, and that's why I would flip to the kitchen knife section. And I was like, oh, look at these. They're made by Ken Onion. What? This would be incredible to own these knives. Wow. And I was like, maybe I'll just ask him if he knows Ken Onion. It's like, yeah, I do. It's like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
This is the most exciting day ever.
Yeah. This is not Match.com.
I guess for both of us, we kind of both had the idea that we wanted to see each other again. Luke didn't know how he was going to see me again, really, how he was going to convince me to maybe get together. But he said, okay, bye. I guess I'll see you at Pat's wedding.
Right.
And I thought, well, I'm not going to get invited to Pat's wedding. And
yeah,
he called me a couple days later and he said, do you want to go with me to Pat's wedding in Las Vegas? You could fly out to New Mexico and fly out to Albuquerque, and we'll drive out to Las Vegas. And I just thought, well, let's do it. Sure.
That's a great second date.
I know. My family was like, who are you? You're going out to New Mexico to spend hours in the car with a knife maker? And I said, yeah, he's nice. I met him one time and we've been talking on the phone a lot. I think I'll be totally safe. And it was the best first date ever.
Yeah. And Bob said he thought you said the first time we met you was in New York, but Bob said, no, we met her at Pat's wedding. And I said, no, it was New York. Well, you're right. It was Pat's wedding that we met her at, Bob. So I'm saying this for everyone to hear. You were right, Bob.
No. Oh my God. Wait a minute. Good thing I'm sitting down.
Yeah. But it was the wedding was sort of didn't really get to know you well, but we saw you with Lucas, and later when I saw you at the New York Knife Show, I have to tell you what I told Lucas. I said, Careful.
I
gotta not use that F word. I said, you flippin' won the lottery. If this woman loves you, don't F it up. I said, this one is a keeper, Lucas, because I'd met a few. And I'm telling you, you present well. You're well-spoken.
Thank you.
You're fun. You're smart. And
I think we backed him up against the wall or something.
No, that would be your style. I wouldn't do that. I'd just be running down the aisle, flitting from place to place and say that and just walk away. So anyway.
Well, he would have listened. I mean,
yeah,
he was very excited for me to meet you guys.
Yeah.
And so I know your opinion was very important to him.
Oh, well, thank you. I have to say, all the people that we knew in New Mexico through the knife world, we are still in touch with, most of them. And it was we called the New Mexico Knife Nuts. We used to meet at our house and do all different things and had knife makers visiting. And it was really, really a fun time. We have another group in San Diego. Do you have a group up there in Oregon of knife people?
We're working on it.
Yeah. Okay.
It's pretty cool. Every once in a while, we'll get a random connection to the knife world, and honestly, it's more than we got on Cape Cod. So it's pretty fun.
Cape Cod is beautiful, but it's kind of isolated, right?
Yes, and that was one of the reasons we picked Bend specifically. And it's beautiful. There's a lot of people raising families, bunch more kids, more activities going on, but also still a smaller town feel. Our neighbor down the street, just like a couple houses down, I guess, Luke was saying, "You're never going to believe this, Maddie." Our neighbor was just telling me that his wife's cousin is Gil Hibben. And I was like, come on. I was so excited about it.
No, yeah.
I got really interested in Gil Hibben's work a couple years ago and used to, be on the hunt for it at knife shows. And yeah, he was excited to tell me that.
So you mentioned collecting knives. So do you have a collection of knives now?
I do now, yeah. And
how many?
I love my knives, but you know what? I still don't have a custom knife from Luke.
You're kidding me.
Nope.
Bob's laughing. That was one of the first things he gave me. That was like the seal of approval. Luke, come on. Get on it.
He gave me a Sci Pop. I have a little collection of Sci Pops, which I love, but I think now there's a lot of pressure. He's like, it's got to be the right one. I've been asking mostly just for a machete for the last, decade.
As one would.
Yes. I want to be able to use it. I don't want it to be anything that's super precious.
Yeah, like a safe queen. You don't want that.
I don't want it to be really big.
In Spanish, there's a saying, "En casa de herrero, cuchillo de palo," which means in the home of the knife maker or the ironsmith, they used knives of wood.
Yeah, sort of the shoemaker's children.
Yeah, that's accurate. I'll be like, look at this blank just sitting here. I think it's right. Like this one could be my knife. What do you think? It's like, no, don't stop looking through the drawers.
Well, Bob made this beautiful fixed blade, which he's known for. And he was making it for this lawyer in Santa Fe. And I saw it on the workbench, and I had never commandeered any of his knives. And I put this knife in my hand, and it was so perfectly balanced. And it was like, a 12-inch or 8-inch. It had a big blade. And I was like, I know this guy's coming to get this knife, but tell him it's not ready because I'm taking it. And I still have it. And then when everybody comes over, because Bob didn't keep anything until I came along. And so I recommend that you keep some things of Luke's.
Yes, that's where you and I also have a similar mindset. There are just some things that he'd be like, I think I'm just going to sell this. I'm like, would you? No, hold on to that one. That's like an older piece that made its way back to you, or something like that. Like,
yeah,
and I just think they're so special. They're little time capsules. It's something I really love about tools and in general, specifically knives.
Yeah.
Coming from the knife maker's point of view, we have a mindset also, and that is that we're not making things to put around the house. We're not making curios and knickknacks.
Really?
Yeah, the original. When we were younger, maybe not so much now, but when we were younger, and I'm sure Luke, thought the same way. We were trying to make a living. He had a mortgage to pay, and I had kids to feed and a mortgage and a couple of dogs to feed. And, you made these things as a living, to make money, to, get rid of them. So the faster you could get them out the door, the better off you felt you were.
Like yesterday, you put up 5 custom knives, and in 1 minute they had all sold. And Luke is the same way. Lucas has people. They have people waiting out in the parking lot. You don't have that to get one of his side pops. Oh, Maddie, let's tell them what a side pop is, because not everyone knows what a side pop is.
Explain that.
Side pop, a collectible bottle opener, pocket jewelry, something that Luke started making those, I want to say 2013, but it could have been before, so that he would have something to put on his table at knife shows kind of after the knives were gone, just because people would stand there and they wanted to look at his work, but if the knives were all gone, then they were all gone. But so he started making these side pops and kind of would play around with different materials or shapes or textures, hand carved embellishments. He was just having a lot of fun with them. And then they started to become really collectible.
Yeah, they're a thing. If you Google him, the side pop comes up before the knives. I Googled him last night, and that's what comes up first, which I think is mind-blowing because he makes beautiful knives. I just want you to know, I don't know if you know this, the first knife I ever bought for my collection was a fixed-blade surgeon's knife that Lucas made.
I do know about that, and I don't know if I've ever seen it, though. I'd love to see a picture of it sometime.
I'll remember to take a picture of it. I use it. It's in my studio. I've used it since I got it to mostly open boxes, or the other day I was doing these collagraph plates and I had real pieces of flowers and trees in them, and I needed to make them thinner to run through the press. So I used that little knife and cut off, really intricate things. So it is a surgeon's knife, and it's only been sharpened a couple times. It's held its edge beautifully.
Yeah, it's also we think, and Lucas, I think, told us also, it was the first knife he ever sold at a show. It was
At a show,
It was in Scottsdale.
Yeah, yeah, that's where I
love it.
Anyway, so let's see. Well, so much to say. So you came into the business. And then there became Burnley, BRNLY brand.
Yes, which kind of predated me. Burnley was started with the side pop, and I think Luke didn't really want to sell the side pops under his custom Burnley knives name, because he didn't really feel like that made a lot of sense. So Burnley became our production company, where we kind of gave ourselves permission to make anything we wanted. Knife or non-knife related.
Right. Luke once told me when I first met him when he came to the shop was, I'm a designer. I want to design things. I don't want to be standing at machines like Bob when I'm his age. And he said, I want to design things. And I think he has the perfect partner to do that with, because you guys have made all kinds of things. But the one thing that I'm always interested in is the Japanese lotus flower. How did that come to being in your brand? Was that before Maddie or after Maddie?
We were at least engaged, I think. I was around for the beginning of that design process, but I don't know if I was working with Luke technically yet. But yeah, he had this idea for, I believe it's an English rose, but more stylized. And our friend Joey Woo, if you've gone to the shows, he's been Luke's show wife, I guess, for many
yes,
many
he joked
years.
That he was his wife before you were.
Yeah, Joey's so wonderful. He's like family, and he's an incredible designer. And so he and Luke kind of worked through the iterations of that. Really inspired by what Luke loves about Japanese design, the clean lines and simplicity of design. Yeah, so that's where the rose came from.
Okay, so I always thought it was a Japanese, and it looks very Japanese. I thought it was the lotus flower, but it's an English rose, Japanese style. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for teaching me that. I didn't know that.
Well, now you know.
I do.
The more you learn.
And, a lot has happened since you two were married, which you probably had one of the most beautiful weddings I've ever been to.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have a great picture of all the New Mexico knife guys together at the wedding.
That is one of my favorite pictures from that whole day.
Yep. It was amazing. And you've done all kinds of super fundraisers, like the Toys for Tots. I was raised by a woman who raised money for all kinds of organizations, but she didn't have social media. I don't know if she would have used it or not. She was very quiet about people writing checks anonymously, and we sort of do that. But when I watch what you guys do on social media with that, it really adds to it. You can raise a lot more money than quietly writing a check. So
that was such a fun project that we started doing in 2013, and it really grew and grew. And the last year we did it was 2020, and it just got so big to the point where we couldn't run it anymore on our own. Yeah. But it may come back. We're thinking of different ways that we could do it, because it really was such a wonderful thing to do around the holidays, and our community, our Facebook group really gets behind it. So
yeah, and the one thing that you've created, we've created it too, but I think you've done it most successfully, is create a real community. And Luke will take a picture at some point of a show with all of the guys around him, and it is very powerful. And it's so cool to see, people walking around with his hat on or his shirt on, or, they got a side pop hanging out of their pocket, or usually not. But I think you guys have done a beautiful job of that together.
Thank you. The knife community really is what got me so excited about being, involved with the business. It's just such a wonderful group of people. And I've been sad that I haven't gone to so many shows in the past few years, but we've got two
these
little
things
kids
called kids. Yeah.
I know. We brought them to their first show. They came to Seaside.
Yeah.
This past July.
Of course, we weren't there. I have yet to meet them.
I know.
Well,
so
no,
sad.
I think I saw Barlow as a baby.
Yes, when I was still kind of carrying him around on my chest, probably. But we brought Barlow and Winston to the show, and they didn't really quite know what to make of it. Barlow's 7 and Winston's 4. Winston is just like a little tank, and he trips over his own feet just standing up.
He looks fun. He reminds me of me. I had the same hair when I was his age. So every time I see pictures of these blonde curls, I'm like, I remember that.
Yeah, I couldn't keep him on the show floor long. I started to get nervous. He gets a little bit wild, and I brought him to the beach, to the bonfire after the show, and after he kind of got comfortable with his surroundings, he would be like, he was just handing out headbutts, which he was calling butt heads. He was handing out butt heads, and kept plowing into Pat Pruitt, just trying to stand and have a conversation with other adults. And here comes Winston just with his butt head, trying to knock him down. I was like, maybe I'll bring him to another show in a couple of years when I can actually talk to other adults.
Yeah, it's hard to have a conversation. I know. I had a kid who still is on the spectrum, and taking him to public places until a certain age was a challenge in many, many ways. But that's how they learn. So I recommend just keep letting him be a butthead. And right. He'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now we're at a point where you're working together almost probably too much. When I read your answers to my questions, I thought of myself, I've been trying to find a personal assistant to work for us, or a fulfillment person, one of the two. And I live in California, and people need $100,000 a year to live here. And then a fulfillment person, it's not that difficult, but it is difficult sometimes. There's workarounds on every, when you're doing the FedEx or the UPS, whatever websites. And I have not found either of those. So this time when we shipped out a zillion knives, Bob helped do fulfillment.
Oh.
I keyed in everything, but he packed up all the packs and marked them with Sharpie of which knife they were. And then I did the labels. It actually was much more streamlined and much easier. But the data, I only ship things once a week. I only ship orders once a week because I don't want to spend all my time doing orders and whatever.
We've
how
tried
often do you do it?
different ways over the years. That's really kind of we're looking at everything from a process standpoint and
Mhm.
evaluating and reevaluating. Sometimes to the detriment of the project itself, because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just thinking about the process rather than getting this done.
Mhm.
But I'm shipping right now. I'm trying to ship every day, and just for a couple, like it takes me, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I go in, I check my orders,
Mhm.
and I can do that rather than kind of waiting until the end of the week. But like I said, everything kind of changes. So I manage the majority of the shipping. And then when we have sales, I'll do the photography,
You do
the
great
website.
photography.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Like we were talking about a little bit before, my ADHD kind of makes some things a little bit more challenging. Like I would really love to learn how to be a great photographer, and so I'll kind of get wrapped up in trying to take the best shot I can.
Mhm.
And, Luke will come up and be like, I thought you came up with that like 45 minutes ago. Did you get the shot? I'm like, well, I needed to do a little research first. And I need,
Mhm.
that's kind of where some things are at right now. And it's just the two of us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
being efficient really is important.
I'm going to give you a little tip from the one with ADD. I don't know if I have ADHD. At your wedding, your sister said something about this was the last meal that Lucas was ever going to have, where he was eating and sitting because you guys are such an active family. And I thought, oh, I wonder if they all have this. But
yes, you know what? I think we there's a few of us that do.
yes, and yeah, well, neurotypical is boring to me, so good for you. And I thought, for me, years ago, I was an art director for many magazines, and we ran 17 magazines a month I had to put out.
Oh my gosh.
And so this is when Post-its first came out. They only had one color, but I had rows of Post-its on my desk, which I still use this system to this day, that when I have to do something, now I have some bigger Post-its with lines, but they stay on my desk and I mark things off until they're done. And that's the only way I could know that I'm, on track and stay on track, is that when I sit down, I can't avoid it. There it is right there. If it's a list, it could get put under another piece of paper. It could get filed in the circular. Who knows where it could go.
Right.
But if it's on a Post-it, it's stuck there. And I only like extra sticky Post-its, FYI. And anyway, so that has helped me to stay on task for things, especially when I have lots of things to do.
And they're all different.
Yes.
And that's the craziest thing to me about, working for yourself is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to myself sometimes, I wish there was just like a photography team I could go to.
Yeah,
like at the museum. Like,
right.
This is crazy.
Well, we have a team for some things. We have a team for our podcast. We have a team for our website. And for our weekly Zoom classes that we do, we have a whole team. They're all part-time, and not everybody has to be present. But it's when it's just, two of us, it is overwhelming, I think, for everybody. And Bob's always feeling distracted, not actually doing the work he wants to do. But I think that's the nature of having your own business.
Maybe you'll have me back sometime, and we'll get Luke in here, and we can
that would be
all
great.
About that.
That would be great. I would love it.
But that's kind of where the both of us are every day. We're like, oh my gosh, now it's 3:00 and we got to go pick the kids up from summer camp.
Yeah.
On two different sides of town. And where did the day go? What did we get accomplished today?
Yeah.
That's kind of how the summer's been going.
Right. And I've been trying, I was part of a mastermind group, which is who pushed me into this podcast and whatever. And the one thing I learned about, I read a book called Buy Back Your Time, and I met Dan Martell, and I highly recommend you read that.
I think we have that. Okay. I should read it.
Or listen to it. What? I listen to books much more because I'm working in my studio, and I have my own art now, and I'm doing these patterns. I'm getting ready to go to Milan to show my collections to fabric and furniture companies.
Oh my gosh, I've been so impressed watching your journey with that, and I've been meaning to reach out and just ask how you because I know you started taking lessons, right?
Oh my
For
gosh,
Illustrator and
for
was it
Illustrator.
Procreate
Okay,
also?
so I don't know if you met Lydia. Did you ever meet Lydia from New Mexico? I think in New York
didn't,
you
but
might
we
have met
have
her.
some art of hers.
Oh, okay, yeah, she's
And
tremendous.
she did a comic book a couple years ago, and Luke is like one of the characters in the comic book. I
Yes,
guess
and
you
I'm
could
one
pay to be
too.
amazing.
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
find your page
Yes,
actually.
I'm on the motorcycle with the polka dot leather motorcycle jacket. That's me. And wild curly hair sticking out of my helmet. But I
I'm gonna
love
go
it.
find it right after this.
Okay, and she's done others after that. Anyway, she and her partner introduced us to the person who taught me Illustrator, and he came 2 days a week. I tried doing YouTube videos, and I'm not of the generation of learning from that.
That's really hard for me too. I know that there is so much information out there.
So
but
anyway,
I'd rather be taught in person.
Yes. And so this person, Clyde, if you're listening, I love you. His wife also works on our team. He's a black belt jiu-jitsu and they were on the podcast. So he came and he's very disciplined, and he could talk me off the ledge, because in an Illustrator or Photoshop, you can get in a corner and I can't get out. And I'm like, how do I get this out of here? Anyway, he could talk me off the ledge, but it was very disciplined, same time, 2 days a week. We worked together. He taught me beautifully. I mean, I couldn't have asked for more. And Lydia was the hookup with him, and we've become friends. He's a tremendous, I don't know how to explain it. He's a sensei. I call him my sensei because he is that. I've never called anyone that in my life. Anyway, so yes, I learned Illustrator at 68 years old, which no one said I could, and just tell me I can't, and I'm going to do it.
Who are these people that said you couldn't do it?
Oh, lots of people. Lots of graphic artists I know that hate their jobs and doing graphics all day. And I'm like, really? Okay, well, I think I can figure this out. So anyway, I did. And I'm not great at it, but I can put my patterns together and make them repeat, which is a feat all in itself. But anyway, so, now I'm doing a whole series from my garden from last year. I pressed all these flowers and branches and whatever, and now I'm turning those into patterns. First, I make them into prints, and now I've gone back to collograph instead of relief. And collograph is my thing. That's where all my one-woman shows were all collographs. So anyway, so it's a little different. I don't have the space to really I have my press and I run it through the press, but I don't have like a water bath and things that you normally have. But anyway, so those are on my table right now. And then I have 3 new skull patterns that'll be, there's a men's suit lining with my skulls with these flints that I found in Bob's drawers years ago from Guatemala. They're called eccentric flints. Funny, I learned that. I'm eccentric Suz. Anyway, so I've learned, so much. I never thought I would learn this much. So thank you for asking me. I tell people, I didn't have a midlife crisis, but I'm having an end-of-life crisis. I got a lot to get done in my age because, you could sort of see the hourglass. I'm at the bottom half. And I can see that. And there's things I want to do, that I had kids and I had other things, and I always put those first and no more. I've mentioned on the podcast, I no longer spend time with anyone I don't want to be with. Thank you, Dan Martell. And I can't get those hours back. I don't want to do things anymore. I don't know about you, but we're at a different point in our lives, but they're really, it's my time now. So you're going to see some other things coming from me that you never expected by the end of the year, which I can't say yet.
I'm so excited. Yeah. No, I mean, it's very inspiring because I've been seeing all the things that you're doing, and it really kind of aligns with all the things that I want to learn and do. The business is busier than it's ever been, and and now with the two of us, I feel like combined with our dual ADHDs, we're constantly trying to download a new project management app or, figure out a new system, or like, this is going to keep us on track. This is going to make sure we're hitting all of our deadlines. But also, look at all these creative things that we want to do.
I know.
And, and I'll look out the window and I see my garden and I'm like, I got to get down there and do some pruning. What am I
Oh,
Oh my
me
gosh,
too.
the lawn hasn't been mowed. So
Yeah, this is the
there
first
are
year.
the really wonderful things about being able to work from home and the really tough things.
Exactly. And my gardening, although I am a master gardener, and this year I grew a cutting garden instead of a vegetable garden. We only have a couple of tomato plants. That was as much work as the vegetables. I thought these dahlias from Holland would just grow, but they needed to be staked and pruned, and now they're getting to be cut back and getting ready to take. And then I have to take them out of the ground for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
What was I thinking? Anyway, I want to get to our
you gotta
last
dig 'em
part.
up. You gotta.
Yeah, oh yeah. So I didn't read well, and that happens a lot. I didn't know that when I ordered these from Holland that the two of the plants came with every variety. So all of a sudden I had like 66 of them. So I'm going to ship some off to my friend in New Mexico who's a master gardener Wendy. You don't know you're getting these, but I want to give her the duplicates and stuff because I overplanted it. Everything's way too close. And I knew that when I did it. I knew it.
But you're like, why not? Let's just see what happens.
I don't want to die, so I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So they're alive, but they need to have more space. Anyway, the one thing we always ask people on the podcast is, what advice would you give other couples who work together? What would you say about that?
Well, I've really been enjoying listening to that part of the podcast because Luke and I maybe haven't been doing it. We haven't been working together quite as long as some of the other couples.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing is just be willing to kind of be flexible and know that maybe the way that you're working together now might change, and be open to making those changes.
Mm-hmm.
My role has kind of changed and evolved in the business over the years. Sometimes there are growing pains with that, but we get done what needs to get done, and I think we like to hype each other up and get excited for each other's wins, and encourage the other person, for better or worse, to try something new or to get that new tool, to learn a new skill. And those are the really fun things.
They are the fun things. They're challenging and they're fun. And when they work as a couple, for us, it's a beautiful thing.
Agreed.
Yeah. Bob and I try and stay in our own lane. Sometimes he comes in, he hates when I say this, he'll come in my studio, which is also the office for Terzuola Design. And I'll say, don't micromanage me, which he hates, but it's true. And I certainly don't tell him, I tell him maybe a little bit about something about a knife, but I don't know how to make knives. I'm not going to learn how to make knives. Anyway, well, Maddie, we have to do this again. We're going to do it with Luke, and let's talk about work and workflow. I listened to his podcast. He has a great podcast. What's the name of it?
Edge and Flow.
Edge and Flow. It's a great podcast with TJ. And I listen to tons of podcasts. I can't even read anything anymore. I just have to listen to it. I don't know what's happening.
I know. That's kind of where I am right now. I'm doing a lot of listening.
And
maybe this podcast is a new favorite.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, I just thank you so much for being on. And as I said, we're going to set up another time with the two of us together. And this is going to be a long one. Sorry, Matteo, but well worth every minute.
It certainly was, yes.
It was really nice to catch up and chat. And I can't wait to do it again.
Okay. And for now, I say goodbye to everybody. Say goodbye, Bob.
Arrivederci.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you're hearing, please share this with a friend and subscribe where you listen to podcasts. Please support our efforts through Patreon at TheKnifeWife, and for all Terzuola goodness, go to Terzuola.net. And remember, if you're not laughing, you're not living. Comments and questions can be made on Instagram at The KnifeWife Podcast or our Facebook group, The KnifeWife Podcast. And if you're a couple who work together and would like to be on our podcast, tell us about yourself with an email at eccentricsuz.com or terzuola.net.